nigga said got me feeling alright. Oh yeah. Got me feeling like I actually know how to do this shit. Goddamn. Freestyling. What's up? What's your boy? I'm so glad to be here. Back in the A. From Boston, man. Big Tunde, Baba Tunde, that's me. Let's go. RTBTH, real talk beyond the headlines, beyond the headlines, real talk beyond the headlines, beyond the headlines.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and welcome back to RTBTH. It's your boy Herschel. So happy to be here. The realest podcast in the land. Get ready. What we talking about today, Tunde?
All right, welcome and welcome back to RTBTH. Tunde, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Back again. Back again. Not for the very first time, because we've done that, but back from a hiatus that, we can explain in more detail later. But yeah, great to be back on the mic. Great to talk and chat and talk shit and whatnot.
Yo, so obviously we've been busy. We've been very, very busy. So the first thing we need to do is I'm going to say to you first, congratulations, sir, because it is September, I believe. That means that you have completed your full doctoral program. I know you already graduated and walked or whatever, but now they have conferred the degree. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Officially
Excellent.
official.
Well, hey, clap it up, clap it up.
Pew, 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 pew. You know it's coming.
Right, excellent. Yes. So, we're busy.
Same to you, Herschel. Congratulations.
Indeed.
It somehow randomly turned out that we both finished at the same time. So, I guess it's fate. And also for this podcast. We did it specifically for this podcast.
Yes, for content. Only for content. 2 doctors,
Right.
2 more doctors just for the content.
Right. Did the whole doctorate program and then finished at the same time for content.
Bruh, so one of the first things I noticed, now being a doctor, and I want to get into, your initial experience and stuff, people addressing you as Dr. Adian or whatever it is they call you. But before I even get into that, bro, I need to talk about something that came across my email when you first reached out to me pretty much after you had conferred your degree and stuff. Bro, professional headshots. Your picture on Gmail is so goddamn professional. I almost was like, who the hell? Damn, do I need to update my... So, for listeners behind the scenes, I have 13 damn Gmail accounts. The one that I happen to use for this podcast is my for fun one. It's, me on our bachelor trip, actually, my bachelor trip that you planned. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good, sir. In Las Vegas, I got like a sports car or something behind me. And I've had experiences in my professional job where we were meeting with a customer or client or someone, and they happened to be the ones to set up the meeting, and they set it up through Google Meet. And, my Gmail is logged in. And so my fun picture comes up and I'm like, whoa. I didn't ask for any of this. I have professional headshots, but you, sir, have gone the extra mile and made sure, where you're logged in, people know this is Dr. Adian.
Yeah, well, I wish it was that sophisticated, but yeah, well, I am, what I should say is that is not necessarily something that I didn't pay for it. I was invited to be a part of this ceremony for Northeastern for,
Okay. Yeah, tell me more.
So they have this society for both undergrads and grad students that it's like they call it the Society of Distinction. Just people who have upheld the Northeastern values and tradition and who have been good, outstanding Northeastern students. So this year was the first year they had one separate for graduate students. And, I'm definitely not trying to come across as like a snobbish or anything, but
just a distinct. Okay.
Society of Distinction is what it's called. Lux Veritas Virtus. And because my last name is my last name, I was the first person who wrote in the book for the graduate student organization. So technically, I'm like the first one to ever be inducted into it.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. You wrote it here first. Let's go.
Hey, I'm definitely very honored. I love Northeastern, and I have a question for the podcast talk that about like our alma maters, you know, now that we have two that are like intensively important to us. But anyway, to go back to what I was offered a headshot, you know, through that ceremony, and yeah, so I think I guess maybe my regular Gmail I use more headshots, but trust me, I definitely like using fun pictures too, but just on the other random email accounts that I, you know, don't have to use professionally or anything. But yeah, you know, first of all, let me just go ahead and like rewind a little bit and say that we have two main topics for this podcast, being post-doctorate students and then also fentanyl. How the fuck does that make sense? Just got to listen and find out. I do want to say, you know, I recognize that it could be a little bit snobby or snobbish or high-minded to be talking about, oh, you know, we got our doctorates and, you know, we're PhD holders and whatnot. Like, hopefully it doesn't come across that way. Feel free to reach out to either of us if the podcast sounds like, you know, we're just talking all this doctorate graduate school shit. But, you know, it was a major experience for us for the past several years. And I would like to congratulate you, you know, many, many more times, Herschel. It's a big accomplishment. And, you know, I think it also sort of confers a little bit of responsibility on us to be good stewards for the profession, but also to, you know, kind of do what we're doing on the podcast, which is talk about things in a rational, educated way and try to, you know, share information in such a way. But anyway, that's the gist of the podcast today.
Yeah, I agree. Also, on that note, you know, we've had a lot of friends and family, you know, travel along this path with us. A lot of listeners, you know, we weren't doctors before, you know, literally a couple of weeks or so ago. So, you know, I feel like a lot of times, because this is just the way that, you know, perception works and the passage of time works. But like, you might meet somebody who's in their professional career or whatever, and you kind of forget, oh, they were a young person at one point. They were a student, so, you know, some dumb college student making bad decisions. You know, we were that for a very long time. We still that to some extent. We, you know, nobody is above, you know, booking a flight the same day of a cruise and thinking that they're bigger and better than, you know, whatever events might happen to throw your plan off. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think that even a lot of these conversations that we are having should be used to just kind of ground, not only to make, you know, to inform those who might consider similar paths, but for those who have chosen different paths. Hey, man, your path is not wrong. Everybody has their own path. We're all doing something different and dynamic and unique and distinct. Mr. Number One, first distinguished Dr. Adian. That's what's up.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's also what I would like to get into this podcast. So speaking of being, you know, the few, the proud, the PhDs, one of the first things that we text each other about was, you know, damn, you know, how many people in the US can even say that they have a PhD in the first place?
Yeah. Did you look up these data?
Hell yeah. Yes, I had to, because that's
okay, I'm ready.
The person I am.
I didn't look up anything, but bet.
So no, that's perfect. So in looking it up, about 2% of the global population, I believe, has a graduate degree at all. And it's like 0.5% or something like that, that has a PhD. Now, please don't, you know, quote me on the statistic. They're going to change. They are going to change over time with new degrees, new people being born. You know, it's 8 billion people on the planet. You know, just kind of crunch the numbers essentially yourself. But what I did find, and across the US, it's maybe like 2% who have a PhD. But we did find one city, Los Alamos, Nevada? I want to say it's Nevada. I don't fucking know. But Los Alamos, Nevada has 17% PhDs. And you were like, you text me like, what the fuck is up in Los Alamos?
New Mexico.
I had to look it up. New Mexico. Thank you. All right. Somewhere over there. Excellent. Perfect. I had to look that shit up because I was also similarly concerned and confused. Like, damn, why are all these smart motherfuckers? That's a very high percentage of people. Like 1 in 5, almost 1 in 5 people you meet is a doctorate in some type of shit.
Yeah.
And it turns out that it is for the Los Alamos National Laboratory, which is a national laboratory for the United States of America. They do nuclear deterrent research. They are building nukes. They are making systems to stop nuclear attacks, cybersecurity attacks, all type. Like it's the big time. Like this is the government portion of where they're contracting out to Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and all these other big, you know, military industrial complex companies. But that's where they're housing the people who are working boots on the ground, if you will, or scientists, lab coats on the ground.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
was really fascinated to learn that.
you know what else happened in Los Alamos? The Manhattan Project.
Well, I didn't. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Okay.
Yeah. And I just looked it up just now. I had it in my mind, like I think maybe from Oppenheimer the movie, like I just knew that it was in New Mexico, but I guess it does kind of make sense. You know, presumably you would need a shit ton of scientists in order to do nuclear research and nuclear bomb activity and testing properly. And they probably do like a lot of the testing out there, like nuclear bomb tests and whatnot, which is crazy to think that like we just be out here dropping nukes, like, you know, hopefully only in the desert and not anywhere that's, you know, going to be affected significantly.
In my research, I found one time they dropped one in North Carolina by accident on some crazy shit,
and it exploded.
100 years, I believe so. Let me hold on. Accidental 1961 Goldsburg, North Carolina, a B-52 bomber crashed carrying two 3.8 megaton Mark 29 nuclear bombs, which broke open in midair, dropping their nuclear payload in the process.
What the fuck? Oh my God.
Yeah. So that shit is real. That's why they're so weird in North Carolina. Nah, I'm just kidding. We love y'all in North Carolina. Salute to all our NC fans. Salute for sure. But
yeah,
man.
That's crazy. But yeah, you know, that's interesting. You know, 2% nationwide, you know, I don't know if that's a lot or a little, but it is quite an extraordinary investment in order to get a PhD. So I guess that number kind of makes sense.
Indeed. So
and also,
do you want
also, like, I think, you know, what you said earlier about, like, you know, I guess what I want to say is that I'm not necessarily advocating that people should get PhDs. Like,
agreed.
And the 2% number, I think, could be considered a matter of, like, you know, it's exclusive. It's like you can't just be handing out PhDs. It has to be very exclusive. So presumably the people who get them have achieved some kind of, like, you know, accomplishment intellectually or whatever. But it could also just be that it's not worth time. It's not worth it. You know, it's like there's probably a lot of people who have thought about it, who would consider it, you know, but it's like, I guess you could say it's the hardest thing I've ever done, you know, and I don't know if we should necessarily go right into it now, but how close did you come to quitting? You know, I didn't really ever think about quitting seriously, but I have thought many, many, many times that I maybe didn't make the best decision about doing this. That maybe this wasn't, like, if my goal is to have a job and have a, you know, good paycheck, you know, and that's not the only reason why I went for a PhD, but hopefully that's one of the outcomes. But it's like, I actually didn't need a PhD for that. You know, I probably could have found a good job. You know, I was doing okay before I went to grad school, you know, so, but yeah, you know, thoughts?
Yeah. So I've considered it all the time, especially so for my program, it was set up to where, like, the first 2 years is coursework and stuff. And the last 2 years-ish ends up being kind of dissertation work and stuff like that. And what essentially happened to me was I kind of got burned out in that second half after starting to develop my dissertation. My advisor had left. This is the story of many, many people in graduate school all over the place. You know, I've talked to many friends. You've had shared some, like, advisor stories and stuff like that with me. But essentially, I was feeling unmotivated. And damn near any graduate program is going to be, you know, more than anything, self-driven. You know, of course, you know, when you go from high school to undergrad, you know, they're telling you, oh yeah, the teachers are not going to hold your hand. It is to an nth degree when you jump to that grad school level. And that's just master's program. At the PhD level, especially when it comes to your dissertation, something where it's, you know, your self-driven research, especially when you're trying to search for feedback or things like that. And I was not getting it. And I just kind of slowed down. If I had kind of kept my foot on the pedal the way I had for the first 3 years, I probably could have finished, you know, even sooner. But I do think that, you know, the timeline that I set out for myself and the perseverance that I had, you know, ended up working out. And we would have seminars during my program of just like, oh yeah, you know, you students, come share your gripes or experiences. Some of the older students get to talk about what they're experiencing. Some of the younger students get to hear that or talk about what they're experiencing or whatever. And many of us were feeling that, kind of burnout of like, damn, well, what do I do? I don't like, they keep telling me to come back and revise this. And I don't know what more to, like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. And that is the process of like, you kind of realize, okay, there's going to be a lot of shit you don't know how to do. And in the process, you're working and developing skills to figure out how to do it or find people who know how to do it or, essentially problem solve and continue to show up. That the takeaway from one of those particular seminars was like, if you keep showing up every day, eventually, and making progress doing, even if it's just some small things, you will succeed. The only problem with that, of course, is that, it is a school that charges tuition. And if you don't do it in such and such timeline, you will be paying ass out a lot of money. And that is, where, again, the programs are limiting because, it's expensive. It's very difficult to live and have a family and do, different things that you want to do on a graduate student salary or graduate student stipend. It is not a salary. It's a stipend. God forbid you're doing part-time work or part-time graduate school, so it takes longer, but you're working full-time and then you have those distractions. I was blessed enough to be able to be full-time work and full-time school. That was literally the only way I was going to make it happen. Even when I first started out, I was like questioning, like, damn, if I don't get this funded, I'm not doing it. Like, they're not going to pay for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't have the availability to make this shit happen. And then once I was in, I was like, all right, well, I need to make sure y'all keep paying me until it's done. And thankfully, so I finished this summer semester. This summer semester was the last check that they were going to send me. They sent it to me in June. That was it. I was hoping for end of July check. I didn't get an end of July check, and it was a wrap. So even there, I thankfully, ran the clock out to an extent where I got all the money I was supposed to get, and I didn't have to spend more money than I needed to spend. So it worked out for me. It doesn't necessarily work out for all, but my support structure was really great. That those questions of, I'm sure you had gotten this too a million times. It's the same thing of, people asking, a recently married couple, oh man, so when are you going to have kids? People coming up to ask you, all right, so, when are you going to graduate? What's, are you done with your PhD? What's going on? And it's like, bruh, it's more complicated than I could just tell you in this month. I was doing interviews. I was taking interviews with people, before I'd conferred my degree. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a doctoral candidate. All I have to do is defend. And they're like, oh yeah, well, so when are you defending? How much time you got? And I'm like, bruh, it don't work like that because you have a doctorate. I'm trying to be judicious about it, but explain. There's situations with advisors and trying to get feedback and whatnot. And once I finally got all the ducks in a row, worked out perfect for sure. But the hardest part almost certainly was getting 3 professionals, who are experts in their own right in their fields together to, pay attention to me, for the 2 hours of my defense and for however much time I needed them to read through 100 pages worth of document. And I know they didn't read it. I know they didn't read it because I'll read it today and be like, damn, I got some errors here. Damn, I fucked this up. Oh man, but
that's kind of what I think too, man. I don't think my committee, maybe my direct advisor probably read it, but I don't think they read it like for real.
I've been told from other colleagues, even before when I was starting to sign up for my doctoral program and stuff, they were like, yeah, the worst paper you'll ever write is your dissertation because, it's not consumable. It's unrealistic to consume even when, so the only other time someone who is not, a student at your university that's like trying to figure out how to do this is going to read it is if someone's doing, let's say, a systematic review or a meta-analysis where they're taking like all of these publications, all these peer-reviewed publications that go into literature on some sort of topic, right? They basically make this singular paper so that you, the new reader, don't have to read 100 papers. Somebody else already did it, and they kind of condense that down and systematically develop, some type of scale or valuation or just a way to inform you on the topic so you don't have to read it. Included in that literature review of all the hundreds, sometimes thousands of peer-reviewed documents, ideally, they will also include they're still technically peer-reviewed, I guess, but they're not published. They will search databases for institutions where there will be dissertations. Somebody wrote a dissertation on a topic. And, a lot of times it may be, this didn't get published because it wasn't profound. Like they just couldn't get it it couldn't get out anywhere, but it was still technically, placed in some system online somewhere. A large university's library still houses it. And we still are, interested in what the potential of this research might have said. So there they may read it. And it's still, again, buried under hundreds of other papers, but ain't nobody reading that shit is the long and short of it. Which, kind of hurts.
Most
go ahead.
systematic reviews don't include theses or dissertations. So I think some of them do, depending on if there's enough studies. And I agree, people don't consider dissertations peer reviewed, but they're reviewed. They're just not published. And it's not peer review in the academic journal sense, but it is reviewed, probably is given more scrutiny than most actual published papers. But the dissertation will get real dusty. But also the most important thing that you need to do in order to get a doctorate. So
I'm working on getting some published. So, that's my next goal, for our field, being at the base level, a philosopher, a researcher, publications, showing the work that you have done to the field. That's the currency. So having those authorships it becomes important, but it is not the be all end all for me, at least. It is what it is.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and say a few things about the concept of whether it's worth it or whether you wanted to quit. Again, I have seen myself as a psychologist for probably decades at this point. I've always envisioned myself as a psychologist, and it's been a goal of mine. So I never really had serious thoughts about not finishing, but I will say in order to become a licensed psychologist, you have to get a doctorate in either clinical or counseling psychology or school psychology. I got my degree in counseling psychology, and for each of those, you have to do clinical training pretty much throughout the entire doctorate, at least 20 hours a week. And then you have to do a 1-year internship that's full time. And I think that that is just an added level of pain, basically, that makes it possibly not worth it, because before internship, it's unpaid, which I think is a crime against humanity. And I've said this to some friends. I don't know if I've ever said it on the podcast, but as soon as I get some clout, I'm going to go ham on the American Psychological Association for allowing this to happen. I think it's a matter of labor. It's a labor problem, because they call it clinical training, but in my experience, you get thrown into the fire and you're working. You're working, at the agency or the clinic, whatever. And then for the internship, the salary is the same. It's about the same as the graduate student stipend, but now you're working full time. The stipend is usually part-time work, like teaching or research assistant, 20 hours a week. So, that is something that I've struggled with. I've had good clinical training experiences and I've gotten great experience, and I am a therapist. So it's always an honor for me to be able to hear people's stories and, do what I've been trained to do in order to help them with their mental health. But boy, do I not like working for free. Jesus Christ, that is the worst feeling ever, man. And that's just the industry standard. I think in some states, I've heard Michigan, they're paid, but pretty much across the board, it's unpaid work. And that's just another thing where I'm if it is deep in your heart and your soul to become a psychologist, then you'll find a way. But if you're kind of, pondering the possibility, that is a major factor that people should really consider, is 2 to 3 years of unpaid work, which is tragic.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I have a note in here that, internships fucking suck. It is the haze. It is hazing, and I totally understand with damn near any professional field. I mean, anything. Most things, I would say you kind of have to start in, some kind of, grunt work situation and climb the ladder. But generally, to your point, you are not thrown out there doing, the true work as, whatever the profession is. I had a similar experience, but not necessarily. So I had 2 different fellowships essentially at the same time. One was with my, full-time job, and one was through the university through my doctoral program. And both of those together, basically added up to a reasonable salary, but neither of them was I doing, half of the work that, would constitute me being paid only half of the amount. So
Gotcha.
I think that it is just a situation where, like, in academia in general, they take advantage of graduate students as cheap labor.
Yeah.
Even within my program. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was literally just about to bring that up. Sorry to cut you off, but I want to say it's not just grad students. It's up and down the chain. There's free labor that's being extracted. Like, academia can't survive without it.
Students in residency, they're doing the same thing of, just kind of keeping you under the thumb until you have some level of seniority and money.
Yeah. But even tenured professors, one example I've heard is like when they review applications for grants. So like, people who apply for NIH grants, the people who review them are other professors who, are probably applying. And I'm told, I've heard stories where they'll just do like they'll have like an all day Zoom meeting or something, unpaid. So this is on top of being a professor teaching, doing research. You have to take out one day or probably multiple days in order to review these punk ass applications. And then I'm told that like you'll get like a lunch stipend or some shit like that. But yeah, up and down the system is free labor is being extracted in some way, which is a tragedy, but the system also thrives on it.
Yeah. And to your point there, some of the only ways to get ahead end up being, I don't know if it's nepotism technically, if they're not related. We've discussed cronyism before, where like, okay, one of my advisors, who was, we were working together on an NIH grant, and she included a super senior scientist that never did anything on it, but his name was just stamped on there just so other people would see it and be like, oh, okay, we know this guy. We don't know you, but we know you're trying to get your foot in the door. And because of him knowing that, I mean, nobody but we who work on it know that this dude doesn't do anything, are going to, kind of rubber stamp this through, which, in the long term is very much not good. That's where, things like, I don't know if you saw the docuseries Chernobyl on HBO Max, or on Max, excuse me. It's not HBO Max anymore. Goddamn. On Max, but essentially across Russia. So I don't think the US would ever get to this point, but essentially during the Cold War in Russia, they were just, promoting individuals who did not have expertise in different subjects because of who they knew, what they, not necessarily what they knew. And it created, just based on circumstances, it was a very, very unlikely thing. A lot of shit went wrong outside of just the wrong people being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it became a much, much worse thing because there was cronyism involved, and these people who were not nuclear scientists or physicists or whatever, who did not understand the ramifications of, when some shit goes wrong right here, oh, well, no, we could just patch it up or pretend like that shit didn't happen, or that, let's say, for example, some shit like that was going down in Los Alamos at the National Laboratory.
Right.
That would be very, very, very fucking bad, because it was just looking at history, it was incredibly bad for Chernobyl, Ukraine, in that area as well. It basically, I'm not going to say it was the only thing that collapsed the Soviet Union, but it had a big old part in it. And let's be real, the United States is looking real wobbly right now. We don't have to get into politics right now. We definitely could. I know we could. God damn it. But, it's just systems like that. And, as we just kind of assess all of these institutions, it's important to not have rose-colored glasses on. It's important to recognize and acknowledge when we don't know some shit. That's, again, I'm going to harp back on that. The lesson that, now, okay, I thought I knew some stuff, when I was a teenager. Okay, I think I know a little bit more stuff now that I'm in undergrad. Okay, I've graduated. I got a degree. All right, I'm out here doing stuff. I don't know shit. Okay, master's. All right, I'm a little elevated now. Then you really get to the PhD level. I don't know nothing. I actually don't know any, I need to read it right now. You can't ask me nothing unless I read it just 5 minutes ago. I actually don't know, and I'm not here to debate you on it because I'm not informed. Unless you ask me something that I'm the exact expert on, even some stuff today, because we have differences in the fields we're in, you're going to know some stuff that I'm going to have to rely on your expertise and vice versa. So, I mean, it's all over the place. And, honestly, in describing how we're thinking and feeling about institutions, do you want to talk about how you feel about your alma mater or both, all of your alma mater. I don't know the plural.
Yeah.
Alma mater. You hit me with the Latin earlier, so you the one.
I don't even know. Alma mater is, I don't know, but yeah. So I have 3 Northwesterns in the middle. That one is, I don't really. I love Northwestern, is cool and all, but I mostly did that just so I can.
Them.
I mostly only did it because I was not a good undergrad student. Nah. But Northeastern also just sounds so much better. But anyway, I'm playing. But yeah, I only did it just so I could get into grad school because I was not a very good undergrad student or get into a PhD program. But basically, the question is like, which alma mater do you hold more dearly in your heart and soul? Because obviously, your undergrad is very special. I still love Emory. The best friends I ever met in my life, I met at Emory. My podcast co-host I met at Emory is an Emory alum. Ooh. So, but I did spend more time at Northeastern. I got like the most powerful degree that I could get at Northeastern. And there are other things that are like I've been living in Boston. I love the city of Boston. I've had a lot of great experiences. And similarly, I have met people that I would consider lifelong friends. But I don't know, like, do you feel some kind of way about it? Do you feel as if one alma mater now takes precedence over the other?
So, they, just like you said, they are different, aspects of our lives. To me, Emory is really important because they're just so formative in terms of the years. We lived on campus, that alone, campus life is not replicatable in graduate school. It just, isn't that. Both of my graduate degrees were at Georgia State, which is, for the most part, a community campus. During my master's, we did go into class, but during my doctoral program, COVID happened. So I only had like maybe 2 courses that were actually on campus at any, given time.
Yeah.
But I was already familiar with the campus at that point, familiar with my professors. I made sure to, ingratiate myself with, my cohort, my colleagues that were also going through so that we could share experiences, advice, and stuff like that, and still communicate with them to this day because, in a lot of instances, those become your peers in the workplace as well, which is super cool. Well, it can be super cool if they're cool. In terms of which is more special. Oh, so I was thinking about this yesterday because it's college football season is back and Georgia State has a football team now. They were getting their ass whooped by Georgia Tech. Me and little Herschel were watching that shit and I was like, oh man, this will be fun. And then Georgia Tech starts running it up. I'm like, oh, damn, well. But so I did get the NCAA 25 video game and I damn sure started my dynasty team with Georgia State. And we damn sure won the first national championship. So we big time out here. So, to some extent, because Emory doesn't have a football team, I don't have any kind of allegiances there. But in terms of, it's hard to say more special. But, I think that, more of my life experiences are painted by Emory, by that undergrad, by that childhood. Because I was, we were still kids, till probably 26 plus, really. We were young people, again, running the streets, making good and bad decisions. And I'm really thankful for the lessons that I was able to learn in such a controlled environment as Emory.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get those experiences. And I would not have gotten the same experience at Georgia State in undergrad. Now at Emory in grad school, my wife went to Emory for her master's degree. She did develop a lot of really great personal relationships and different things like that with friends and colleagues that have grown up now that, it's reminiscent to me of what I had at Emory during my time. So I feel that to some extent, you can still develop that at the very least at a master's level. At the PhD level, people got their own lives and it's just harder. You have to really venture out to be like, the best way that I now keep up with my cohort is like, and this helped me to complete my dissertation, but we had a writing group, basically like 2 times a week for 2 hours. Somebody set up a Zoom call. You could join it, you could not join it. And a lot of times I was joining it and nobody else was joining it just because I just had some shit I needed to get done. But that kind of accountability was helpful to kind of drive me. And, even, when other people do get on, the first 10, 15, 20 plus minutes, we're just chopping it up. Like, all right, so what are you doing? What's up? What's going on? How are you feeling? You know, are you progressing in your program? Do you need me to review a thing or, you know, listen to my presentation while I do this, you know, right now? Because you are also, you know, you don't know the subject matter, but you're in the field. You know, you understand what it is to listen out for. And, you know, okay, this was not clearly explained. You need to go back and, you know, constructive feedback. So you know, with any relationship, with all relationships, you have to be intentional about how you do and build them. But yeah, in terms of just more versus less special, I got to go with Emory.
Really? Wow. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I mean, too much
fun. It was too much fun.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's like it's a very different way to look at it. You know, you're right in the sense that it's not the same sort of like friendship or friendliness, you know, where you can just kind of like be pulling up on people at random times of the day, you know, and you really just have to walk like 100 yards to go to their dorm or whatever. But there are some things at Northeastern, you know, that were pretty special. And I think you probably have similar sort of experiences. Like, for example, I was the executive vice president on the graduate student government. And, you know, that was a pretty exciting. Well, I mean, it was great. You know, I think you can flex to it a little bit, but it's also like not that big of a deal, not that serious if I were to give the whole story. But anyway, no, I'm very blessed and grateful. And we did like, you know, we passed a referendum to like increase the budget for the graduate student government, you know, so there was like a lot of campaigning, which was like a great experience. And, you know, it was kind of a lot of work, but I've never done anything like that. And obviously, like, the goal is to be a psychologist, and that's not possible without the Northeastern degree. So, and, you know, and then also I was inducted into the Society of Distinction. So, I mean, that kind of holds a little. That kind of holds a little.
Talking about, it's not that much of a flex, but actually, you see my trophies in the back, the big plaque on the wall. It says Tunde runs as Northeastern.
Well, I'm very proud of it, but I mean, I always, for whatever reason, compare myself to our official third co-host, A, who's been a doctor 2 times in the 4 years that we've been like freaking struggling to get our 1 doctorate. But he has like way more accolades. So I'm just like, man, it's like not even, I'm glad and proud of it, but I'm just like, well, it's still this nigga out here stunting, you know, but anyway, so, you know, there's like random things like that kind of makes Northeastern like very special, man. So I honestly don't think I can make a decision. I never thought I could say it wasn't Emory, because I love Emory, but I mean, I really do also love Northeastern. So I don't know. I also got to make the disclaimer again. Sorry if this comes across as like high-minded, you know, snobby, like, oh, you know, look at my degree from Emory and shit, you know. So my bad.
Yeah, look at it. Bro, we fought hard for that shit. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
No, we're not just, you know, throwing it in people's face or whatever, but like, you know, it is what it is. You know, everybody again has their own path. They're doing what they got to do to make their life work for them. So, you know, this worked for us.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great. Before we get to, so I know we have like, it's a substance abuse discussion. It's not just about fentanyl today. I'm sad you set it up like that, because there are other things involved that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, man.
But
fentanyl
fun.
It's so great for the title, though. For the podcast.
Yeah, I guess if you put it in the title, we'll get some clicks. Okay, yeah,
yeah.
That's how you get the algorithm going for sure. It's addictive. I mean, what are you going to do?
Right.
But so I had one, you know, just kind of fun question for you, and then another that's like, you know, more just thought provoking or whatever. But so the last time we were talking about fatherhood and stuff like that, what would I tell my son and da da da. So I was talking about dreams, right? You know, I want him to make sure he keeps dreaming. And so this is a thing that I want to ask you about. Do you still, you know, have you ever had school related dreams or nightmares, or, you know, oh man, I forgot I had homework or a fucking quiz or, you know, a paper to write. You know, you're 37 years old, but you still are you still dreaming about school?
I mean, I tend to have like a random dream where I'm like late, or I haven't been to a class in like weeks or some shit. And, you know, this stems from like actual experience from undergrad, and didn't get a very good grade in that class. And it was like fucking, you know, horrifying. And, but yeah, it's not like grad school based. It's still like, I still think I'm having like this undergrad, like, sentiment inside the dream. But it's like this like terrifying, like, oh, I haven't been to this class in like 6 or 7 weeks. I don't know shit. There's a test coming up. The finals coming up. I'm about to fail, and that's just terrifying as fuck for whatever reason. I don't think I've had any like grad school, like consistent grad school dreams, probably nightmares from internship. Nah, have you?
So similar to you, not really any from grad school, but like during my grad school experience, it had been a lot of like, so mine were always set in high school. It was always like my high school. I just always can envision it in my head. The hallway, the entrance hallway is like really long, just straight down to the back where the cafeteria is. And, you branch off and there's classrooms and stuff like that. But I'm always like, where the fuck am I going down this hall? I'm always lost. That's kind of the main thing. Like, I don't know where my fucking class is. Sometimes it'll be like, all right, I have 4 classes today. All right, I know where the first 2 are, but this other one is downstairs and I got to make a left turn, 2 right turns and just some shit like that. I'm always fucking lost and I hate it. Every time I did have, and this goes back to middle school. The setting is always high school, but in middle school, I had a teacher, Miss Allsbach, and she was like the literature teacher. She did like 6th grade, and then she also did 8th grade. So she would be like she would be a grammar Nazi. Now she was great for setting up people to have like really good grammar. Like it definitely helped me to like improve and be better at what it is that I was, reading and writing. But she had this desk. She was not very tall, but she had like steps up to her desk. So her desk was like looking down upon the rest of the class. And it was terrifying. It was fucking terrifying. This lady,
that is very interesting.
A little bit mean, but she was more like, nah, I'm not going to let you slide on any of this. Like, yo, I need y'all to learn how to do this. And now obviously I'm seeing, other young people and stuff growing up and, I mean, we see what the internet is with bad grammar and whatnot. And, I don't give a fuck what you're writing on, your YouTube comments. I also write terrible, bad grammar on whatever. Like, it is what it is. But in an academic sense and having read, other people's papers and stuff, I'm like, yo, how did you get
that? Bro, that I have experienced that so many times. I mean, it's a lot of pretty bad writing and, at this level. Yeah, I don't want to go down those road too much because I might have to name some names, but yeah, how did you get this far? Is a question that I ask myself a lot.
And I mean, it's the same thing even for my stuff because I don't like to. I mean, it's very hard for any paper that you write. If you've written it, however many times to then critique yourself after however much time you spent on it can be really difficult. So I know I also have made mistakes where like I said with the dissertation, I'll come back to it now and be like, damn, I fucking forgot a word or this just doesn't make sense. This sentence is dumb. This is just a bad, so there'll be something like that. Oh, okay, I understand that. But I'm sure you have seen papers where it's like, yo, every sentence is, you just using words because you thought it was a good idea to add encompass. You just added encompass like 8 times in this instead of include. You could have wrote something else. You could have said anything else, and it is what it is. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the school dream.
Are you of the mindset that
I'm hoping they stop?
Well, yeah, I was just about to ask. Are you of the mindset that grad school makes those dreams like, become more prevalent as opposed to?
So that's the thing. I was having the dreams after I was out of grad school after I was out of undergrad, before I was in grad school. And then now I have not had those dreams now that I've finished. But I was having them through the past 2 years. Well, I've been in my doctoral program 4 years, I guess. But like I've been having them recently enough that like it was still a topic on my mind. And I was just hoping like, all right, now that I finished this doctoral program, anytime I have that dream, I'm going to just wake up laughing. Like, yeah, got your ass. I got all the degrees. And it's, you can't stop me. But, and so I actually haven't had the dream anymore. It's like 2 or 3 different, particularly recurring dreams.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm excited to be past that. I am very hopeful that it does not continue to haunt me, if you will.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, we're on to a new frontier, the postdoc life. Which doesn't mean I'm doing a postdoc because I think they're oppressive, but we can talk about that a different day. Hopefully that means that we'll have less terror in our lives.
Do you want to? So we talked about the hedonic treadmill, I think a couple of podcasts ago, but I wanted to recap what it is and then ask you, some questions around it. So just for our listeners, who may be new or whatever, the hedonic treadmill is essentially this life thing where, we're always kind of in humanity satisfied by, whatever may be happening as we kind of, accomplish things throughout our lives. We will just essentially find a new thing. Let's say, you're playing the lottery and you win $1 million. Oh man, this was really great. I won $1 million. But then, you're feeling really good for 2-3 weeks, whatever. The next month goes by. You're like, oh man, this feeling has gone away. I don't feel like a millionaire anymore. I need to gamble again, or, play the lottery, or do something new. How do I get this feeling back? And that over time becomes the hedonic treadmill. And so for us with grad school, we've accomplished another fucking thing, another degree, another little plaque on the wall or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have, that feeling of the hedonic treadmill of like, okay, well, what's the next itch that I need to scratch? Or, obviously we're still relatively close to the finish line, to having, gone across the finish line. So maybe you don't feel it yet, but do you have anything in life that's like, what's up next? And I think, I also want to say, I think it's both a healthy thing and when managed well, but can be very unhealthy. So, talking about it and kind of planning around it, I think is good and positive.
Yeah, man, I agree. I think I am maybe basking a little bit in the accomplishment right now. So it hasn't really hit, but I definitely have aspirations that will definitely like cloud out like my sense of accomplishment. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like eventually I'm going to start feeling anxious about getting these things done. And I'm not going to care anymore about having completed a doctorate. One of them is I do want to write a book. I want to write more. And, I have a few things published that are like more, lay articles or more like media articles, not like academic stuff. So I'm proud of those writings, and I do want to write more. I want to write a book. I have ideas. I have entrepreneurial interests as well. And I won't necessarily speak about that, but I will speak about like ideas for mental health. I think that there's so much that like we have so many challenges and problems. People talk about a mental health crisis, which I think is, fine to call it that. But I think it also kind of maybe minimizes the fact that there are other things that are contributing to this crisis, and not just a matter of people having mental health problems as like socioeconomic factors. But I think there are things we can do in terms of the actual treatment, the industry and the service level of mental health. I think there's a lot of things that we do that make no freaking sense. And, I found myself having to, do a lot of like, pushback during my internship because there were practices that just make no sense, and, one thing that comes to mind is like, I think we can do a better job of trying to like, I have interest in exploring data science for mental health, understanding mental health, like challenges and concerns, So for example, there's like these large data banks, and I actually accessed one, the UK Biobank, for my dissertation. And the biobanks are usually for biological data or biological specimen. So what is not currently available is a sort of large comprehensive data bank for psychometric data. And I think we can learn a lot, I'm talking about 100,000 people contributing psychometric data to a data bank. And, my personal interest would be like cluster analysis to see, if we can create a little bit more of a data-driven understanding of how mental health challenges cluster. Anyway, that's like a little bit too sciencey, but yeah, that's like where my mind is at. Is like, all right, like how do I build a database of 100,000 people contributing psychometric data? Like that's where the hedonic treadmill is taking me now.
Okay, that's what's up. Nice. So for me, I mean, I've got my plate full with fatherhood stuff, I guess. There's, always some shit to do there to try to, mold him into, my son into like a human being, a positive, person in society or whatever. But, in terms of like my own, growth and success, which is, more what I think this is. I mean, I get a lot of value from that. It's been really nice and fun, and, especially spending that time with, my own parents and just kind of acknowledging that, when you're a kid, you're just ungrateful. It's just a part of it. Like you don't know what all they did, for you, the million diapers I've changed or just spending any kind of time feeding it, literally keeping them alive. You got to recognize like, oh, my parents must have done this or someone must have done this for me to even get to this stage and, feel appreciated and loved or whatever. One thing that I have been trying to do, I was doing some of this during grad school and I slowed it down to when I was working on my dissertation, just had kind of focus on my own stuff to get it together. But I've been doing statistical consulting. I started a little company to basically assist others who are like working on their, master's or doctoral dissertation or other, epidemiologic projects or, any science related project really that, may be afraid of the numbers or, not have a good programming background or different things like that. I can offer my services to help, push you across the finish line if that's what you need. You need somebody to write up your analysis plan and, develop this and da, 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 da. And I'm grateful to say that, I've had a few clients even since I graduated. I had maybe 3 or 4 during my doctoral program. And, even that was just like, random, people would hear that I was doing this and get a recommendation. Now I'm like, I started the whole situation and set it up to have its own Gmail address and stuff. So stats are the letter R, statsrmybusiness at gmail.com. If anybody is interested in my services, feel free to hit me up. I am, just building a business. Eventually, I would want that to grow into something larger where, we're contracted out to some, larger company or something like that.
Hey, that's great. That's great, man. Yeah. Statistics is something that will never go down in demand. And supply will always be trying to catch up with the demand. But pretty much like every research team that, I've been involved with, like they have to like contract out. Either someone on the team is like a statistician or they just got to contract out. But no one ever feels confident enough in their statistics abilities. I guess probably because they're not actually good enough. But yeah, it's a I would imagine a very it would be a very healthy business.
Yeah, we're working on growing. I mean, the clientele is like really you just kind of have to find people that, are in need and, potentially interested in your services. But yeah, I've now been working with folks like across the United States. I had a call yesterday. They were at UCLA. I was like, damn, it's 11 a.m. here. It's 8 a.m. Like you got up early to
right.
Get on the line with me. That's what's up. Okay.
They're UCLA like professors or?
No. This is a grad student at UCLA.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I'm not gonna use their name or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I've, and I'm not speaking on this person, but in, my process, I've worked with some good writers and again, some bad writers where I'm like, all right, hold up. We kind of got to tear the walls of this house down and really put it together. Cause I'm not going to feel comfortable. You're going to include me in the acknowledgments, but I'm not going to feel comfortable with you trying to go and defend this if, we're going to work with you on understanding the stats and stuff. But like the writing itself, like, of course you got to be able to explain and defend yourself, but like what you presented here is not good.
Right.
And, understanding the best way to communicate and be a consultant, is one of the things that I've learned and am learning. One of my early experiences in doing it was, with Georgia State during COVID, because before I started my doctoral program, I had been working with CDC on, surveillance research. And when I first got to my doctoral program and COVID was happening in the fall of 2020, and the university was trying to set up their, testing systems and stuff because basically athletic students, any students who were in sports and stuff were still coming onto campus. They still had to be in person and stuff. So they had to be screened. Them and professors had to be screened, on a regular clip. And they needed some system to kind of be set up to do this in a good systematic manner. And they called your boy. And I was like, hell yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is what I do. Okay, that's great. So I was really, astonished to do that. And then so now, I'm just translating that into my own thing. And, hopefully that scratches the itch. But, one of the things that I've always, been challenged with is, my dad, I'm named after my dad. My son is named after me. I've been chasing my dad my whole life in, all things, just trying to be bigger and better and, all this, whatever. And, he is also a doctor. He's a physician, a medical doctor. But now I have more degrees than he does. I, in fact, have even more degrees I had even more degrees because he only has the medical degree. He did not end up actually finishing. He didn't have to at the time finish his undergraduate degree from MIT. This nigga was so smart that he was just like, oh yeah, nah, yeah.
Oh my God.
I got all the credits. I got the credentials. What's up? Y'all gonna take me away. And they did. And then, 30,
that is hilarious. I've heard that. I feel like I've heard that on a few different occasions, like lawyers or doctors.
Yeah.
Like didn't finish I'm like, how does this even make sense? Like, why is that being allowed? But it is what it is, I guess.
The system is flawed. I mean, it's not so flawed, but like I understand that if you meet the requirements, why would you need these other electives?
Isn't a requirement to have a degree to apply to med schools?
It depends.
I guess maybe back then it wasn't.
Yeah, it's for sure changed. And then the other thing, because our academic systems here in America are unique compared to other developed nations where, you don't necessarily need an undergraduate degree. Like you could, I believe this is true in Australia and the UK and maybe Canada as well, where like you go from high school into a program that may be 6 years. It may not necessarily be an undergrad and then medical school program. It's like a more specifically developed program so that you can kind of matriculate and then get your own degree and stuff. And even in, a few other countries, India and other places, I've met, folks who are like coming to the US as medical doctors and dentists and stuff. And then they're getting, different degrees now because their system, one, they're young enough and, have the life availability to still, learn and do and change their career. But like, I mean, it's just an interesting system, and knowing and understanding a system and how to take advantage of the system is the name of the game. So, salute to him for doing it at that time. But yeah, I'm trying to, improve and get better than him at all things, which is, my goal for my son to be like, all right, I see you, big dog. I see you doing some stuff, but I'm watch this. That's cool. Watch this. So, my dad has a, pilot's license and stuff like that. I would like to fly and just different fun things. I want to experience, stuff that, brings me joy. I'm doing a lot of that already, and I aim to continue to do that. So even as, I achieve more things, I started the business. I got some clients now. I'm going to in a few months, years, decades, whenever, I'm going to have to come up with another thing, to maintain my interest. It just is a part of my personality, and, acknowledging that I think is more healthy than the constant chase, being a dog chasing the mailman and you don't know what to do once you caught the mailman type shit,
Indeed. The hedonic treadmill keeps going, and it's sort of a gift and a curse. I didn't really know what that term was. I gotta shout out Xavier, one of our Emory alum friends. He was the first one to introduce it to me, and when I learned what it was, it made perfect sense for my whole life. Like, never satisfied.
Yeah.
Satisfied briefly, but never satisfied. Well, so that was Doc Talk. Just reflecting on the doctoral journey, and touched on a few other topics, the hedonic treadmill and whatnot. But it turns out that we actually wound up having, some intersecting things that we were doing in our doctoral journeys that we wound up learning a lot about, specifically substance use disorders and the opioid crisis. Myself in the context of treatment, and you in the context of epidemiology. So we actually have part 2 of this podcast coming up in the podcast feed. And we're going to continue the conversation, but specifically focus more on this crisis that we have on our hands as a nation and what Herschel and I learned from our doctoral journeys about this problem. So that's hashtag RTBTH. Check back for us in the podcast feed. You know how we do. We out. Peace.
Check us out. Check us out. Check us out. That's what I do. That's how. Hey man, it's gonna make your head explode. Check us out. 5 letters, 5 words. 5 letters, 5 words. 5 letters, 5 words. Beyond the headlines. Beyond the headlines.
All right, cool. Yeah, we went to the Bahamas. We went on a cruise, a damn carnival cruise to the Bahamas for Taylor's brother's wedding. my brother-in-law's wedding. So,
You're talking about Alex?
yes, in the league. Yep.
Gotcha. Bet. Yeah, that's what's up. And that was Herschel's first trip.
First flight. Okay, story. I can tell you this, we almost missed the fucking boat. I was terrified. Now, first off, obviously, it's his first flight. We planned it. I planned it, set it up all right, we're gonna land. We should land 4 hours before the boat leaves. Well before the boat leaves. We're flying to Orlando. Orlando is about 40 minutes from Cape Canaveral, where the coast is and where the boats leave from. And so I'm like, all right, that's 3 hours and 20 minutes at the very least to get over there. Okay, you got to get off the plane and get your baggage claim and da-da-da-da-da, right? Dude, we get a 2-hour delay. We get on the plane. We get on the plane in Atlanta. Let me just set it up. We go on the plane in Atlanta. They're like, all right, yeah, back it up. We're going to push off from the gate. Pilot gets on well, guys, I got some bad news. Looks like we're going to sit here for about an hour. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm like, bro, I see the weather. It's stormy. He just says, I don't know what to tell you. And we're like, bro, now we're just sitting on the plane. We had timed it with the baby. All right, he's going to be nap time. He's going to get this bottle at takeoff. He's going to be cool. He's been chilling. He's been big chilling. It's no problem. We sit there, 45 minutes go by. Pilot gets back on the line. Hey, so, we got to actually go back into the gate. Yeah, and of course, the baby's getting restless because you can't stand up. They're like, we're on an active taxiway, so you got to sit down and be buckled in. And he's just like, all right, well, I got but so much time in me before, it's time to rock and roll. We can't just be sitting here. The flight is supposed to be 45 minutes alone. And,
right, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Y'all did 2 flights just waiting.
Yes, bruh. So, all right, so we get him up, and the pilot at this point, eventually, we get to take off. He's like, all right, we're gunning it. We're trying to make it. Gets up in the air, no problem. But the window of time of all right, we tried to give you your bottle in nap time. It's just askew. It's just, 2 hours off of whatever it was supposed to be. So now we're up in the air and he's up again. All right, what the hell? And we're descending because again, the pilot is rushing to try to make up some kind of time. And so he's descending quickly and this is for everybody, not just babies or kids. My ears are popping. I know his ears are popping. So he's like, I'm not having it. I'm awake. I don't know what this is. I've never experienced it before. It won't stop. And I'm going to let everybody know. We've all been on a plane. We all know what it is. And nobody gave us a hard time or anything, which thankfully, and I try not to do that same thing when I'm seeing, have been before him, seeing other people, having kids and whatnot. It's just a stressful time. You do what you got to do. He did his best. The pilot gets us on the ground. And it's storming. He's like, we can't pull up to the gate. We can't get off the fucking plane because there's a lightning strike within, another 20, 30 minutes. And I'm checking the clock if we don't leave by this time, because we got to call Uber still. And you know how that shit goes. It's a toss up. And there's a group of us. We got to get our check back. It's just a whole fucking thing of all right, I don't know. I am now getting nervous. All right, but still, we get an Uber driver. We get in by 1:40. I'm saying in my head, 1:40. We're in the car. We're making moves. So finally get our bags. Call an Uber. Bruh, tell me why the Uber driver is driving below the speed limit the entire way. The whole 40 minutes. Oh yeah, I love this drive. Very nice, friendly Cuban lady. She refused. Oh my God, why is everybody not driving? Everybody's driving so crazy. I'm like, they're driving crazy because you're driving too slow. They are, the trucks, everything is flying past you. There's a transfer for, if we couldn't bring the baby on the Carnival transfer bus because he needs a car seat. But they are the boat is not going to leave with a transfer bus still on the way. We leave before the transfer bus. And the transfer bus damn near passes us to get there. It was a good, we leave maybe 15 minutes before. They arrived 2 minutes after I get out the car. I'm still pulling stuff out the Uber car, trying to plead with this lady, get us there, please. You're driving, they crank the speed limit up to 70. I'm looking at the thing back and forth. Bro, what the fuck? I see you're going 65. Why are you slowing down right now? What
is it because of the rain? Was she just being cautious?
It's not raining anymore. It's not raining anymore. She's just driving slow. She's just lackadaisical. I'm like, we have somewhere to be. We got to be there by this time. They're going to close the doors. People are on the boat texting us hey, in 1 minute, they're saying we're gonna, and I'm like, all right, we can see the boat. Finally, after 40 minutes, we can see the boat. We're pulling up, and like, you still gotta kind of navigate. There's fucking construction in the area. So the lady's like, oh my God, I'm lost. I'm like, bro, there's a sign. There's a sign. Follow the fucking sign.
It's like one of those things like, yo,
Yeah,
let me drive. Get out the driver's seat. Let me handle this.
Almost. And Taylor's in the backseat with the baby. And I'm like, bruh, I'm trying to be very nice because I know me yelling at you is not going to get us any faster. I'm trying to, make conversation, but you got to get us fucking there because if we miss this thing, I am. I just am. I'm sorry. I don't know if you know, but I'm going to take it right here in front of everybody. It is what it is.
Hit you with that good 1 star.
Yes, 100%. But we did make it. We got on, and I was able to be like, all right, let me relax. Yeah.
Herschel is turned into full dad mode by now.
Bruh. Yes. At that stage, because my parents also went, and my dad's like, see, I told you, we came down the day before. I'm like, Dad, I can't even right now. I cannot even. Yes, you're right.
Your dad is about to is showing you the ways of true dad activity. He's like, you think you got this covered, young man. Yeah, let me show you how to dad it up for real. You get there a day early.
Yes, the shit was crazy. I thought I had it in the bag, and it really was just like random thunderstorm and It is what it is. We made it. The boat was cool. We had the grandparents there to watch them, so we got some time to chill, but it was still like, it didn't feel like vacation, really, because we were still like on duty. I think that's the nature of being a parent. Like, we didn't have to go to work and do job stuff, but, you're still kind of vigilant, like, all right, what the fuck going on? All right, where is he at? What's he doing? But grateful to have a bunch of other family members around to keep an eye on him and stuff. And, it was cool. It was cool. Then we made it back. Little delay on the way back, but he handled that way, way, way better. But it was cool.